Welcome to Beyond Sunday podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Not ready. Okay, let me actually wait and tell you that I'm ready, so that I'm not doing that. Because you just go, she's going to edit in and
Welcome
just go. Yeah, that's a great start.
I know that made it.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast. Glad you're joining us. We're going to dive in and talk about casting your cares on God. Let's talk about that.
You are watching the Beyond Sunday podcast.
And I'm going to catch on fire if it, gets just a couple degrees warmer in here. I'm just telling you. It's normally warm, but I dress for sweater weather.
It's hot. It's hot.
All right, thanks, Joe. You're gonna have to. Can you send a text message to him to tell him just to not? Hey, Joey, stop. Thanks. No.
That'll be too noisy.
Yeah, could you hear that? So on the podcast.
All right. You're one of those big fans.
That's not obnoxious.
All right, let's do this.
All right.
Okay, so we're having a conversation today about casting your cares on God. Immediately, first care is that it's 1,000 degrees in this room.
Fair. A little behind the scenes for
but
you
it's
guys
not
that
as
can't
hot
feel
as
the
this
temperature.
conversation is, okay?
Wow, look at
See,
you bringing it back
even
around.
warmer conversation.
Oh, you're so good at this.
So, casting your cares on God.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's.
Go for it.
You can tell it's been a while since we've done this. That's why you took the intro. You're like, I can take this.
I offered it
and
to you first.
You get control of the lob. You go, there you go, back over at you. So yeah, as we look at this, I think one of the reasons why it came to mind is that we are clearly in a season of time in history where, at least in our culture, our society, where people are starting to be more deeply burdened all the time. A couple of years ago, several of us at the start of 2020 were doing some teaching with Dr. Henry Cloud and just doing some online stuff as he was sharing. And he was talking about this season that we were entering, and this is the crazy thing. Talking about the season that we were entering because of all the flux and the change and everything else. He said it was like low-grade crisis. Not like a crisis that you can just feel this massive weight and you can see here's this finish line, but it's this low grade thing that you go, it's fine, this is fine, and it just keeps going and it never lets go. And so because of that, we're seeing people with more anxiety, more depression, people with greater addiction rates and things. A lot of rehab and halfway houses are experiencing higher inpatient rates than ever before. Just so many different things. Therapists are running out of places to see new patients. So it's becoming this very large scale thing. So I think there's an answer for it, though. There's something that we need to do, and that was kind of the impetus of wanting to talk about this today.
Yeah. So obviously, outside of being a Christ follower and having a relationship with Jesus,
right?
It leaves you in a pattern of lostness when you experience all of this, because, kind of like you mentioned, we're living in this low-grade crisis on a good day.
Right, yeah.
On a good day, there's low-grade crisis all around us, and we have become and are more and more becoming accustomed to it and getting used to it. However, we medicate the crisis somehow.
Yeah.
And so outside of Christ, there's a lost way of medicating often, because as a Christ follower, I know the source that we can run to.
Right.
Outside of that, we definitely see it inside the church as well,
there
all over the place. And again, it shows us just how human we are. We have a great need for Jesus, relationally, in our hearts, our souls, transformationally, if that's a word. But
we're going with it.
That sounds like a word. But we begin medicating so many different things, oftentimes things that may even feel or seem good on the outside, with family or activities or things like that. We use all of these things, but I think the root issue or cause of all of it is all of the burdens that we experience. Some of us don't know how or where to direct them.
Right.
And so in the subject of casting our cares on God, I think it's an eternal perspective that we have to have in engaging as a Christ follower with Jesus. If you're not a Christ follower, it's a different conversation entirely.
Yeah. If as just a person in the world, if you're not following Christ, then what you have to do is, just go search the internet, find the best ideas that you can. Find your favorite, medication, whether it's, entertainment, social media, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is, and just apply as needed. And, and that's your best answer. And you just keep trying to, fill the hole or comfort over. But as a follower of Christ, then we do have an option. I think one of the challenges, though, is that we don't avail ourselves of that. That we keep trying, at least here in America, we keep trying to push forward in our own strength. There's kind of there's the old adage, that the Lord helps those who help themselves. And you go, by the way, that's not in the Bible, just in case you're wondering. But we've carried some of these beliefs. Or the other old adage, which I also love, is the Lord will never give you more than you can handle.
We talked about that.
Also not in the Bible.
Wrong.
Right. It's close. That one's close, actually. You just got to have all the right words in there.
Small, major detail shift.
Major detail shift. The other one, the first one, not in the Bible at all. The second one, it's close, but still wrong. And so, we start having these kinds of attitudes. And so I think we muscle up and we press forward.
Sure.
And we don't actually cast our cares on God.
Right. All of society says, pull yourself up.
Yeah.
Work it out, dude.
Right. I mean, for us, as you go in, day out, you see people running around and everyone's life looks fine. Everybody's doing fine. We'll talk about, hey, how can we be praying for you? Is there anything that anyone needs? And it's just deafening silence. Everybody's like, I'm good. We're fine. Yeah. How you doing? Fine. Yeah, I'm good. You can't be.
I'm not drowning today.
Right. Yeah. And when you look at it, the number of people that claim in surveys to be suffering from like depression, anxiety, the number of people that are having addiction issues and things like that, and you start getting these numbers and, if it's like 1 out of every 3 and 1 out of every 2 and 1 out of every 4, and you start having these numbers piling up and you look at the people around you, there's a joke that, you always go, hey, 1 out of every 4 siblings is a weirdo. And if all your siblings seem normal, you may be that guy. Yeah. And you just go, here's a sea of people. And you go, 1 out of every 3 or 4 people has this, and compounded together. And you go, how are we doing, everybody? And everybody goes, yeah, fine.
Good.
I'm looking at like 150 people all at once. And you go, nobody. Okay, seems fine.
Yeah, you see the denial of humanity. They don't even... Yeah. Oftentimes we don't even recognize what we're experiencing. I don't understand. What do I need to cast on God?
Right.
I can pay my bills every month. I'm generally happy enough. I get to do the things that I enjoy to do. My wife and I don't fight very often.
Right.
We have, our baby. We have a good time. What is there to cast on the Lord? And the reality is so much.
Right.
So much. It's now a conversation of understanding the weight that we actually experience that we have become numb to.
Yes. Yeah.
Recognizing the ugliness of our own heart, of the world, in its sinful nature, to understand that we have so much to cast on the Lord.
Yeah. And, when you start thinking about it, it's, because we're told all the way back in Psalm 55, And then Peter quotes it in his epistle that, that we're given this great encouragement to cast all of our cares on the Lord. And, Peter even adds, because he cares for you. And I think one of the things that is probably the hardest part for us is what you said. I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. I promise, if anything's going to crush and kill me, I'll come to you. But like we were talking about, this low-grade crisis, and I think just even in general life, it's more the pile-up thing.
Oh, yeah.
I take a backpack and it's empty, and, I remember using this analogy at one point. If I told you to take a lap around, the building where we're recording here, and you go, okay, I can do that, and you've got this empty backpack, and you go, hit the lap. And then you come around, and I go, okay, here's a rock. I'm going to put this rock in your backpack now. And you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's fine, whatever. I put the rock in the backpack. Go for it. Every time you come around, I got a rock. You go, look, that rock, the size of a fist, you thought, what do I care? The problem is after a handful of laps, you now have 40 pounds hanging off of your back, and it's pulling you, it's tiring you out, you're starting to huff and puff, and you don't know why, because you look at what could be causing this.
Surely it's not this.
Well, right. What's changed in my life? Well, Norm gave me that one rock about the size of it can't be that.
Yeah.
It's not significant.
Stupid little rock.
Stupid little rock. But we don't pause to examine what's everything that I'm dealing with.
Yep. That's exactly right. There are the little things that we allow to happen, and that low-grade crisis, it would be like me flicking you in the arm. That's not going to hurt.
Right.
If I sit and flick you in the arm in the same spot for 4 hours, you're going to have a bruise there.
I promise it'll hurt you too.
It's going to turn purple. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll probably end up fighting, so I'm not going to do that. Seems like a bad idea.
For both of us.
But if I do,
right,
cast your cares on the Lord.
Yeah.
But like, if the same flick that does not hurt continues for 4 hours, you're going to have a big bruise.
No doubt.
And it's the little things that seem insignificant that create a pile up. And what happens is, I'll say just like what you said, when something starts crushing me, I promise you, I'll share.
Right.
I'm not going to let that happen. But what happens is we're taking hits over and over and over again, and we're growing weaker and weaker and weaker.
Right.
And it's the insignificant thing that will crush you.
Right.
Because you're wearing all of the other insignificant things.
Right.
All of the little insignificant things become so significant.
Right.
And they will bury you.
And I think in pridefulness, we've promised, hey, if there's anything, I'll come to you as a friend, or Lord, man, of course, yeah. You go to the Lord whenever you've got a need, but again, because it was such a small thing, you go, and that even if you could acknowledge it, for a lot of folks, it's not something that you're going to sit there and acknowledge and go, that's worth telling you about. I had a really, really stressful meeting today, and you're having a full-on come apart, and somebody goes, are you out of your mind? What is your problem? That's how we think it's going to be received.
Right.
And I think the solution, as we begin to look at casting our cares on God, then, so that's the situation. But what do? I think we have a misunderstanding to begin with. We start treating God like, hey, I will come to you when I begin to get crushed, when things are insurmountable. We go to our spouse, our best friends, things like that. We don't just live our life in a vacuum and then go, it's now a disaster, let me share with you. We should be, hopefully we have good relationships, sharing regularly. Hey, man, how's it going? I'll tell you, when you and I talk, I tell you what's really going on in my life.
Right.
I don't go, oh, yeah, fine. No, I tell you what's going on. So you've been hearing all along, if I start having a really rough day and you can see it on my face, you'll go, hey, you doing okay? I know you had this and this, because you've seen all the small things. And so as we start thinking about God, it's not the thing, I can't carry this, so therefore I bring this to you in desperation. Casting our cares on him, bringing our burdens before him should be a daily practice of everything that's on our heart and mind.
Yeah. What I love about the word care is it seems like such a light word.
Sure. Okay.
I care about this. And all that means is it matters to me.
Yes.
And so what I love about that word is it paints the picture and the reality that as significant or insignificant as it seems, the Lord desires that.
Right.
I want that from you.
Right.
As big or small as it is, anything that you care about, I'm going to care about.
Right.
And I want you to release it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is going to be monumental things in our life. And it's going to be, somebody said something, I don't think they meant it, but it kind of hurt my feelings.
Right.
Or, there's this small thing, but it's kind of bugging me, or I keep thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the challenge is, one, identifying all of the little things that we feel about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel these things. And again, however big or small it is, doesn't matter.
Right.
But the word care feels so light, but it can grow into the heaviest of things. And the Lord desires all of it. I put in my notes as we were preparing for this, Psalm 103, verse 12, says, as far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us.
Okay.
And so, again, we see this desire that I want to do this. I don't want to just hold it with you. I want to hold it for you. I want to remove it from you. And it takes the act of surrender for us.
Right.
We see that we're going to experience all of this heaviness, this affliction, and our Bible calls it light momentary affliction.
Right.
And so, again, puts kind of in an eternal perspective.
And that's an important part.
That I had kind of briefly mentioned earlier, this eternal perspective that, you think this is big, and it matters to me.
It does.
Even if, again, we may blow things out of proportion. But if we surrender them, and we will offer them, cast our cares to God and relinquish them in the right direction, He'll take it. He'll throw it as far as the east is from the west. He will carry and take that burden from us and give us relief from this light momentary affliction that we experience, all of the trials of life. Light momentary affliction. Whether it's persecution, struggles in relationships, striving, whatever it may be.
And I think, as you're saying that, what occurred to me is that, as he's talking about the transgressions, he's talking about the sin in our life directly in that moment. But the truth is that our circumstances may not change. Our mind and our heart weight that we feel may change in those things. But I almost feel like as we approach God, as we're trying to think this through, that, again, it's the God is the fixer. So when I have a problem, I will bring it to you. But what He really wants, I feel, is a deep relationship where it's all the like you use the word care. Anything that you care about. So, LP's still a wee little gal, and so she doesn't have cares yet that she's, ready to share, except through
crying, milk,
a little bit of crying. Yeah, that's about it. But, for my daughter, when I pick her up from school, I want to hear about everything in your day. Tell me about your art project. Tell me about your newest TV show. And she will. If she cares about it, all of a sudden I hear about her favorite show, and you hear about the artwork, and because we talk about that regularly, here's the deal. Because we talk about that regularly, I talk about, hey, what's going on? What was going on in your art stuff? When, she's frustrated now and I can see it, I begin to ask, hey, how was your day? This art thing I'm working on isn't going right, or we've got to do this in class. I get to naturally start hearing about burdens and cares because every single day I'm trying to tap in and go, hey, just tell me what's going on in your world. And I think that's the beginning of how we can begin putting these things away from us, is that we hand them over to God because we're used to just talking to Him. We're used to going, hey, here's what's on my heart and mind, period. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's, quote, I need you to fix it. But I'm just handing and presenting and bringing all that I am before you as a regular habit. So the moment there is truly a weight or a care, I'm going to go tell my friend about it.
Yep.
I'm going to go and tell the Lord about it because we talk about everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's a constant communication that happens that allows us the ability to know there's a safe place where I can process all of this. Right. I can release all of this. Mm-hmm. I can word vomit all of this. The Lord can handle it.
Sure. Right.
But yeah, it is something that we learn over time. It is like building relationship with anybody. Mm-hmm. You gain a comfortability and a trust, right, and a relationship on such a level that says, I know that I can enter into this safely.
Right.
You and I have had deeper and deeper, more challenging conversations because we had less challenging ones that felt like more challenging ones a long time ago.
Right. Yeah.
And so it naturally progresses. You get access into deeper parts of relationship,
right,
when you take the first step.
Yeah. And, when you mentioned, I can't remember which one you said, one of the Psalms.
103.
103, thank you. As I think about the Psalms, I've been doing a little reading in them recently, getting ready for a message, and David writes a number of the Psalms that we find in the Bible, and the thing I love is when you look at David's life, there are times he's pursued and afflicted, times he has hardship in his life. I mean, there's one point where he's just on the run for years of his life. And when we start looking at those and you go, wow, that's a guy who had some strain, also had some great victories. He's a king, a lot of different stages and phases in life. But David was a person who knew how to relationally stay connected to God. And when you look in the Psalms, David throws everything out there, and some of it is pretty heavy, the way he describes his troubles are monumental, things are like a snare. They are surrounding me. Their words are like fiery arrows. There's all this heavy language. And yet a repeated theme that we keep seeing from him is the Lord is my refuge. He is my peace. He is the safe space. So even in the midst of my turmoil in life, there is still God. Here's all of this, and yet here's still God. And even in that Psalm transaction, I can only imagine as you write things, as I write things, whether it's sermons or whatever else it is we write, there is, when you're focusing on God, you're focusing on life, there is almost a prayerfulness in the transaction of writing. My mind is towards God. I'm thinking about Him. I'm thinking about the circumstances. I'm thinking about the needs that are present. So I can almost imagine that there's that same kind of prayerfulness, and even maybe even greater with David as he's writing these very things. And so you see that relational connection. Everything's just going out.
Yeah, and I like the reminder. I think that's a good kind of capping point for us in the conversation, that as we begin casting our cares on God, we realize and recognize, and it gives us access to step into this shelter that we're offered and given.
Oh, yeah.
And so, again, whether big or small, I encourage you to just begin testing the waters. Try this out. See if God cannot handle all of the things.
No doubt.
And you realize that I have this incredible protection, covering, shelter, and hiding place, right, as you would also see in the Psalms, where the Lord says, I'm here.
Right.
This is safe. This is okay.
Right.
Doesn't matter what is going on, because everything's blowing up around you.
Right.
We're safe here.
We're safe here. Yeah.
We're safe here. And so, anyway, great conversation. Keep the conversation going. If you have questions, write them in the comments. We'd love to engage back and forth and keep the conversation flowing. But for now, that's what we know.
This has been another episode of the Beyond Sunday podcast. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.